Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and you guys asked that I switch it up in terms of multiplayer combat, so we're going to be here in Napoleon Total War, taking a break from the Warhammer gameplay, and even in the Rome 2 gameplay, we're going to get back to some Napoleon combat that we haven't seen in quite some time. I do very much enjoy it, the playstyles are different, the maps are interesting, and there's something about just the historical titles that I greatly appreciate. In any case, we're going to be playing here on Lodi. I am deploying as Spain. The reason for this is because they have access to guerrilla troops. So this is very, very key for maps like this where there's a big river and it can get very choke pointy where there's only one way across here. The other main means of traversing the river is over in this position. And then finally the last one is literally across the entire map over here. So that's one of the things I kind of dislike for these river maps in Napoleon Total War is just how few ways across there are. So I figured, hey, let's go ahead and advance deploy. So I have my cazadores, light infantry, and a mounted rifleman unit over here. And I was going to secure the plaza and the town hall. The French, however, are positioned up. They did expect me to deploy units in Vanguard, knowing that I would seize the town. And so what my opponent did is he deployed up on the hill here with his artillerie à pied, which is one of the most expensive. Oh no, sorry, I think the Grande Batterie is. This may be one of the more expensive French guns, I believe. I can't actually recall. But in any case, the rules for this battle were actually limited to one piece of artillery for each army and 3 light infantry. So usually you will see caps put on light infantry to about 5. 3 is a little bit lower than average, but I do like that type of combat. Plus the reduction in artillery makes it so that you have a lot more line infantry, and line infantry battles are oh so glorious, so I was very happy to take that on. But anyways, the artillery is going to be starting to pound my positions here, but I've stationed myself behind several layers of buildings, so I should be pretty safe and sound. Meanwhile, my forces are going to make their way across. 2 light infantry troops going to be making their way through the opening, but the French scouts atop the hill are going to spot my movements. And especially my own 12-pounder that's moving up is going to start to take fire. Opening salvos are going to hit a cluster of my men. 5 go down. The rest are going to pick themselves back up. But this is the crossing that I have to deal with. That artillerie à pied basically has extreme range, very good accuracy, and you can also see here it has pretty deleterious effects on my morale, so I need to hustle over. I don't want to bring my commander in just yet. I'm keeping him safe and sound from artillery shells. Losing a commander early in Napoleon, especially as a second or third tier faction like Spain, yeah, that can be pretty devastating, so I'm keeping him back. Meanwhile, what I'm doing is I'm doing a little bit of scouting with my cazadores. I was hoping to get around the side of this artillery, and we're going to be going around the flank here. But just as I close in on this position, units pop out. They were hidden. 6th Regiment of Infantry de Légère and the Brave here. These are going to be the elite of the French units. Going into square, even has some Garde Chasseurs Cheval. Very elite units that can also fire from a distance. Luckily, I was able to get out of that fight with only 5 losses. And these guys didn't get shots off, but he knew I was coming the whole time. If I were him, I would have prepared myself a little bit better, but he waited for me to stumble into his forces before springing that trap. So still a pretty good move, and he's going to force me back. Now that that has happened, I'm pulling over more infantry because I was like somewhat scared that he would be able to swarm in with those 3 troops and take the city. And if he were to take the city, he could very easily pinch off my my movement through here. And with the superior artillery, I'm not even counterfiring. He would be in an excellent position. And that's one of the things that's pretty interesting in Napoleon. The in lots of line battles and artillery battles, the importance of fixed positions, reinforced positions like this town hall makes me think of the various farmhouses at the Battle of Waterloo. Speaking of which, the little fortified farmhouse of Hougoumont, we are going to be doing a Moments episode on that. I've started to have a research team put together the episode. They're starting to collect information on the heroes of Hougoumont, and then I'm going to have to get some of the artists on that. But it's going to be pretty awesome. Haven't done anything having to do with the Napoleonic era historically, so I'm very eager to start diving into it, and that's a nice little set piece to talk about. But back to the battle itself, like I said, the fear was that these elite units are going to start pushing forward. Lots of interesting guys over here. So the 6th Régiment d'Infanterie Légère, that is an elite skirmishing force. Then you have an elite cavalry force. Garde Chasseurs. And the Chasseurs are the variant that can shoot while they ride. And then finally, the 18th Regiment d'Infanterie de Ligne, the Brave. These are the elite of the Old Guard, I believe. Until, yep, here they're going to come to seize my fortified position. But I've been able to pull in a lot of units, all filling out in the plaza, and I can jump into this this town hall. So I'm going to be sending units forwards, my Fusiliers here, to hold the enemy at bay. But in the meantime, they're going to go ahead and try and seize one of these buildings here with the National Guard. These guys are essentially a half a step above militia units, somewhat competent. They can you know, trade decently, but they're still fodder. But they're going to be good for securing advanced positions. So he's going to go ahead and hold the house here, which is going to secure the right French flank. Finally, I've been able to deploy my artillery. I'm going to start to get our shots on. Some of the enemy shots are going to be trained on my light infantry. I'm going to choose to instead try and target this artillery battery, hoping that with my first volley I could perhaps knock out one or two of the guns and then thereafter get an advantage. I'm hoping that the shots that miss might hit the Old Guard or even this general, so it's a worthy shot to take. There come the first couple ones, barely missing the general. Somehow no one flinched here. But anyways, my artillery is going to continue to pick its target here, but having a very hard time of it. Meanwhile, my opponent is going to continue to start to pick away at my light troops. I'm not quite ready to assault this position. He has the advantage of cavalry on this flank, which can sweep back some of my skirmishers and other units, so I'm waiting to deploy more forces. Pulling forward with my Walloon Guards. I believe I have two of them, one position here, the other making its way into the city. It is being held in reserve currently. Anyways, the enemy is starting to move forward. I've deployed one of my Fusiliers to take on these enemy forces, the National Guard. I'm going to scoot on into this building and attack them in melee. I should be able to clean this up. And I've got some guard forces on the flank here getting the first shots. The Cazadores lighting up this elite French skirmishing body, only taking out one of them. And here comes the pretty withering return fire. Trading rather slowly. These skirmishing engagements, I really like how they play out. Where it takes actually a fair amount of time to snipe the enemy force. The enemy does have cavalry that does get in here. I form up into square, dissuading them from charging in immediately. But he thinks he can grab a couple of my guys, which is somewhat brave, but foolhardy to say the least. I'm going to go ahead and close this so we can see a bit more. Let's watch some of this. Combat in the city here is going to be pretty epic. But yeah, I'm glad I've been able to get his guys stuck here. And he's going to be kind of infiltrating around. Meanwhile, I've gotten my own cavalry wrapping around the flank, and they're going to go after some of these light troops, forcing them back. The Old Guard is pulled in to reinforce. The other unit of the Brave with excellent stats are going to be sent in to secure that townhouse. But meanwhile here, I'm continuing to chase these guys down. These Cazadores and other units can switch to Saber, but they're not that good at running down infantry. And if the close support of the Old Guard here, and even the cannons I'm worried about, may tear into me. But anyways, I feel like I've precipitated enough combat on that flank, so I'm going to pull in with my Walloon Guards and other. And you can see the more units get pulled off to the left, the more relative strength I have over here. So I'm waiting to position that. Meanwhile, the guns and everyone are unloading into my big infantry body, so I may have taken out one of the light skirmisher units, but I'm going to have to pay with my cavalry force. I'm going to stick in it because I definitely want them to shatter before I pull out, but this is going to allow the National Guard here to get a nice volley against me. My guys may even start routing. One more cannon shot and they're done for. Woo, luckily that one went overhead. But that allowed me to clear out the enemy skirmishers. Oh god, that's really bad for my guys. But like I was saying, that allows me to get the comparative advantage in terms of skirmishers, so now I can start to deal with the enemy. But what ended up happening is these, the unit of the Brave here, with only 11 losses, cleaned house, saved the National Guard, and kicked out my Fusiliers here. So that's pretty bad. So I've lost position there. I don't quite have the cannon ability to take them on. But meanwhile, that cavalry force that was, we thought we'd killed it, ended up running around and chased my general out of position. He actually got a nice volley against me, and I'm going to try and wheel about my infantry here, trying to save the general, but he actually caught me a little bit by surprise. I didn't think he'd be quite so ballsy, and so these guys are desperately reloading, trying to get some final shots against my general. I'm going to try and line up and fire into him. And there we go. So that's going to be a massacre. He gets one more volley, clips a couple more of my guys, but luckily the general there makes his way out, and we kill the remainder of this guy. So a brave and noble effort. Got my guys down to 8 men. But now with my rear secured, it's time to move forward. 12 pounder is still firing into this position, having done almost nothing. You can see how close a lot of these shots came. Impact craters right in front of the general here. He has lost no men and has not flinched. A very brave general indeed. I'm going to say screw that. I'm going to reprioritize my targets and hit this unit in square formation. Always a juicy target for forces, but somehow my cannon crew not having the best of luck. The enemy's doing fairly well, but at this point I feel like I've traded pretty well. The enemy is holed up in this settlement, but that's okay. I have kind of my own side of the city secured, and I've been able to trade various units in to the point where I have skirmishing advantage on this flank, and now I can just start to sequester, force the enemy back, and get my cannons to target enemy units. Here comes another shot missing the old guard. And I do have my cazadores in the very rear coming back from routing, and they can be a thorn in my enemy's back. I do want them to be a threat in being for now. But seeing as the enemy is going to retreat, I want to try and isolate the forces in this position. It's very risky to tackle elite infantry like this in a building, especially when the enemy can come back and hit you on the side. So I'm just going to ignore it for now. Keep some Walloon guards and other units ready to spring on them if they evacuate. But in the meantime, I'm going to move forward with my cazadores and try and chew through these National Guards, while at the same time pushing forward with my units. A little bit wary of the Volti Gale here. Hidden in the woods, I do not want to take the first volley, so I'm going to sit tight and push a little bit harder towards the center. Cazadores here still having to reload, but they're in good spirits. I mean, they can outclass these National Guard. They see my cannons are incoming. Actually, these guys here are very, very brave light infantry. Going to push right through the French line, and they are going to be making a beeline for the artillery à pied. My reasoning for that is, hey, if I can take out his artillery, I win. I can sit back and just fire away all day, and I dictate the pace of the combat. So I'm going to try and push forward on that. Although I have to be wary. He does still have Grenadier Cheval. And these National Guard decide to charge forward. Did give my cazadores a bit of a beating. That's okay. I'm going to trade them out for some of my fusiliers. We're going to turn about and hopefully shoot at the enemy before they get in this little divot here. Nope, looks like they fired straight to the divot. So that is an interesting mechanic of Napoleon Total War. I really like the little minutia of the battlefield here, where if you zoom in, there's actually a lot of intricacies in terms of line of fire. But yeah, that's what's kind of saving these guys. With reinforcements of the old guard and also Grenadier Cheval, I'm scared. But my light infantry braved the canister shot and are going to start to tear through these units. I took out 2 guns, so I'm pretty excited about that. And now my cannons can retrain. They're going to try and fire here. My fusiliers are going to square up. National Guard are continuing to pursue. I'm going to try and bring in these Walloon guards as reinforcement, but that is going to tempt these guys out to hit my flank. So it could be a very tenuous situation. I do have artillery reprioritizing and firing into here. Meanwhile, my light infantry have been a distraction. They got the early shots off, reduced the cannon crew, drew attention of the enemy, and now we're taking a lot of fire. But that's okay. I'm pulling up with my cazadores. I think the distraction has been achieving its ends. And then I pull up with my cazadores, turn about, and I'm going to try and fire into this block. He's overwhelming my fusiliers, but I think we'll be okay there. Ooh, my cannon shot does actually clip a lot of my cavalry. That was pretty devastating. I got some volleys off against the general staff, but that friendly cannon shot actually ended up routing my cazadores. I could have clipped the enemy general, perhaps even killed him in melee. So that was really, really unlucky of me. And bam, man, another shot misses. This general is unperturbable. But anyways, all of this distraction has forced the enemy to regroup, pulling in more Walloon guards to push the center, and then I'm going to be able to push this flank once I sense the enemy repositioning. And I'm eager to take out this cannon. I know the best thing he can do right now is switch to canister shot and really decimate my guys, so making sure to silence that, and it looks like it's worked. All the guns have been destroyed, and the men are going to suicidally charge. On this front, the enemy is reforming. The cavalry have been driven back. It's 2 versus 3, so he should win this, but I do have the advantage of range. The enemy units are going to try and stream out of this building, sensing that they can cut off my forces in this position, and that's why I had some units in reserve. So if he wants to pull out and hit my flank, I've got a greeting party here. You can see that the National Guard pouring out. We're going to give them the what for. I don't even know what that expression is or if I'm saying it correctly, but we're going to give them some of that. There you go, choosing their target. So the National Guard is going to be going down. Wish they'd have shot the Brave. But this is a good target. It's a weak one. It'll make them rout that much more quickly. I pull out of this position because there is the young guard here, which has good firing rate. And I'm going to push up on the right flank and just allow my cannons to do their damage. Over here, though, we're getting a double charge. Cavalry is going to charge in. I do retreat back into the square. He does clip on some of my units. Charges into the rest, penetrates a little bit into the square. They're fighting the bannermen, but the square should get its buffs here. We are still holding. Cavalry is going to be caught up in it, and we should be able to destroy it. The problem is units in the back here. Got a lot of units surrounding, going to fire into my square. I'm going to pivot about with my cazadores to try and shoot into his grenadiers à cheval. We should win, but this infantry force in the back doing the exact thing I wanted to do, killing the National Guard and forcing this unit of the Brave to turn. So I'm going to turn his line back. Meanwhile, my own units here, cazadores, have come back from routing and tried to target the enemy general staff. He's going to pull out of the engagement. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to be able to reload here. And he's going to seek shelter. But with that, that's the go-ahead to continue to push up through here. I'm going to pull my own general, who's down to 8 men as well. Both generals very low. But anyways, he's going to help to reinforce this side, try and close in on my guys. I'm a little bit scared here, so I'm going to just continue to pull. And the further he gets out of position, the more I can envelop these remaining guys. Thank God the gun crew has been suppressed. And now I can start to pull up. Cannon's going to be firing at the... I want to take out these light units here, and that'll allow me to then pull up with my own light troops and start to pick away at the young guard. Meanwhile, over here, he's going to go 1v1. Against my unit of Fusiliers. Unfortunately, they are still attack commanded on the enemy general staff. I figured I wanted to target him first, and I did that damage. And now they're going to reprioritize on the Brave. But what I'm going to have to do back here is a little bit of stutter step micro as he's charging after me. I pull out with one unit, allow the other one to fire. Once it gets its shots off, I'm going to have to pull it back and let this guy do the remaining damage. Cavalry is going to come back as well. Going to try and shoot into the Brave, and I'm meanwhile bringing in some reinforcing Walloon guards. I love guard units in Napoleon. They're awesome. The platoon fire that they do, I believe, is here. Oh, no, they're fire by rank. Sorry, maybe that's just an Empire. But anyways, I'm devastating this unit of the Brave, forcing them into square with the cavalry, and then now we're going to shoot them up. All of that is precipitating a massive charge on the right flank. Nothing to hold me back here. General is pivoting into the center to rally my forces over here. He actually decimated both my guys, or actually one of them. Oh, these are Walloon guards, actually. They should hold up pretty well against the National Guard, especially with the National Guard here serving as a meat shield against the old guard. But eventually these guys will destroy my guys. So with the National Guard out of the way, Walloon guards should be destroyed, and these light troops will go the way of the dodo as well. Over here you can see my enemy repositioning. I think he's thinking of sniping at my general. I am not quite microing here, so we'll see if he does get a volley off. Looks like luckily I'm able to force him out of position. Just too much fire. He didn't take that chance, and instead the entire French army is going to go ahead and retreat. The Brave here are also going to pull back, allowing my guys to rally, and now we can kind of storm the front here. Pushing forward with my Fusiliers. My enemy is going to try and do a bit of his own stutter step, getting some shots off. He still has some light units, so I have to be a little bit careful. You can take a lot of damage in these types of situations if you're not careful. And sometimes what's important as well is when the enemy's trying to do this stutter step retreat, you have to say no step back. You just have to continue the pressure. So that's going to be what my Fusilier force here is going to be. Swap them over to melee, and I'm going to tell them to charge into these Voltigeurs. Yes, they'll get this one volley, but if I can survive it, which it looks like I will just barely with this morale, I should be able to close and then allow the rest of my troops to get in range. So all along the front, you can see the same thing happening here. There we go. The enemy is running away. I am, however, winded, and they are fresh, so I should be able to hold out. And he's going to fall back to a better position because I have the flank on him, thanks to my Walloon guards coming back. Although, as he is doing this, my own cannons are now going to be out of range. They're going to continue to try and fire, but I don't think that'll last too long. Let's see, they get one final shot. Didn't even see where that landed. They're trying to hit this young guard force, but yeah, I don't think that's going to work. They're going to have to unlimber and chase. But anyways, you can see the discrepancy here. These light troops are getting just out of range, so I decide to stop and fire while I'm still in range. And it ends up killing a couple guys. and then I get back onto the chase. My Indians are going to hold up at this this little nook here. And this pretty good position. He can hold out by these couple buildings to hold the flank and really secure his front. 2 skirmishing bodies to hold the left flank, and he may even be able to use the terrain to his advantage here. There's a bit of a lip he can abuse, as well as using some of this light cover here. Although I'm not quite sure how much these trees and shrubs factor into things. Alright, it's going to be interesting. On this flank, he has 2 skirmishers. I have 2 skirmishers. More line infantry, so that should be in my favor, and especially with 1 Cazadora unit here against no skirmishers, I can kite him for quite some time. So it looks like the balance bar is quite in my favor at this point. Well, actually, not super if you look at it here, but I mean the assortment of units that I have definitely favors me. I have 3 skirmishers to his 2. He does have a fair amount of some 2 elite units here. My Walloons are depleted, but I have a lot of line infantry, and this Walloon Guard is actually not that bad. On top of that, I still have my general. Although he is pretty susceptible. He's down to 8 men, and you'll be seeing in the rest of this combat my opponent trying to snipe at him, and especially with some of the shaky morale of Spain, it's not out of the question that he could start to get a general collapse and make that precipitate more routes on my side. Anyways, my opponent is going to redirect some of his Voltigale to be on the right-hand side. He has to deal with my skirmishers. But let's go ahead, and now that's kind of more low-stakes battle. Let's get down with the troops and just appreciate some of the cinematics. And I was doing just this in the battle. This really reminded me of stuff you'd see, in some of the large Napoleonic battles. Yeah, a lot of it is line warfare, but at Waterloo, how a lot of these battles might have started is some early delaying action after something like minor, like a farmhouse, where okay, the skirmishers engage. Then the general is like, oh, this is a nice position to hold the flank and force the enemy to take unnecessary losses. Let me reinforce with 1 more unit. So, okay, that unit comes in, the lieutenants come in. Perhaps if the assault, they take the settlement, or sorry, they take this area, the enemy reinforces more troops, they take it back. The commander on this side then says, okay, we're going to have more troops because I really want this position. My guns are getting into position, and I really need this... this observation point and whatnot. So maybe he'll send in a couple more units. Maybe he'll even send in a general after that. And that's how these things will escalate until you get to full-scale combat. And that's a little bit of the story of Hougoumont, which we'll be talking about in that Moments episode in the future. Anyways, I'm taking full advantage of this impassable terrain here to block some of the shots of these old guard and allow me to trade a little bit more equitably with my my lower level Walloons, while my skirmishers from a distance do try and pick them apart, and it seems to be working fairly well. On this front, I'm going to pull up with my light infantry right on this ridge, and we're going to face off against the enemy. I'm being a little bit coy here, keeping some of my forces back. Not quite ready to throw them in because, again, like I said, I'm a little bit wary about the morale on Spanish forces. And definitely keeping my general out of the line of fire here. I'm scared of any extra shots coming in and hitting me. I do have 1 fodder force in the center. Fusilier here pulling up. And you can see a couple volleys in and their morale was relatively shaken. I'm going to pull in my general just to shore these guys up. But a concentrated push here could perhaps shatter my guys. My opponent's thinking about it, but that's why I have more units in reserve if he decides to do that. Walloon Guards shuffling back into position in case my enemy does do anything tricky here. He's going to focus fire on my Fusiliers, pulling up with the young guard who are fully reloaded. These guys have pretty good accuracy and reload rate. So yeah, there you go. 1 volley. And take my guys out pretty successfully. And they're going to pull out of there. Now, here come the reinforcements. 1 Fusilier here and the Walloons as well. And that is just stripping some of his support here. Young guard going to be pulled out of position. And now, find themselves in a precarious situation. Do dodge most of the fire there and get out, but pressure is on. They've yielded ground. This is my cue to move up. I'm also going to be moving around with some of my Fusiliers. The depleted guys who took that center still have their drummer boy, and they're going to push around this flank led by their captain seeking glory, and he's going to go, and he's heard a lot of gunfire on the right hand side. He saw it firsthand, and he's going to say, let me earn my glory, let me sneak around the village and get around the flank of some of these elite units, see if we can turn the tide. So we'll see how victorious that is. I'm going to dispatch 2 units, a depleted Walloon Guard as well, just to help them out. So they're going to sneak around this settlement. But all of a sudden, the old guard here pops out and redeploys. The honor of the French force here, keeping pace with my units. And before I'm able to get into position, I spot them. We're going to wheel about, but it looks like the old guard are quicker on their guns, and point blank, they're going to destroy my force. On top of that, it looks like there's another skirmishing body or something. Oh no, sorry, it went in this direction. But yeah, the old guard single-handedly destroyed this one force. My Walloons are wavering a little bit. They can spot the uniforms of the old guard, and they're like, oh shit, we're not ready for this. And so double chevrons, but that's not going to save them. They pull out of there. So my left has been crushed. In the center, I do commit with some of my cazadores who are out of ammo against the enemy voltigeurs. I'm going to get some scalps here, try and take them out, and force a delay there. While in the meantime, I advance in column. One of the best ways to get across the battlefield quickly. And so they're in column formation. I'm going to get them to run here soon, but I'm tying down the center with my skirmishers. And then here we're going to do a double time to get across this beaten zone here, potentially in the open ground across this road. So let's take a look here. The Spanish flag makes its way across. There we go, and that is going to be enough to scare the enemy back. Continuing to do their delaying action. I'm going to push up to the next row of hedges, but you can see this column has been told, forge ahead, do not stop. And this is scary to be the bannerman in the front. But it's working. I mean, there are those intervals when the enemy does have to reload. And it's working. And historically, no one wanted to hold up to a bayonet charge, so that's what we're counting on here to push him back. In the distance, though, more traditional fighting taking place with the young guard exchanging fire, the old guard taking their place in the center line after having dispatched my flanking attempt. And we'll see. I mean, they're trading against Fusiliers, so I don't expect to win this here mano y mano. Ooh, bannerman almost goes down there. But I do have the advantage of more light infantry here to support. I'm going to focus fire on the weaker units, the brave here, weaker numerically. Just make sure that they crack, because I believe they do have morale buffs to units nearby. So I'm going to make sure they crumble. On the flank here, my column has crashed into the enemy voltigeurs, so we should be seeing them off, and then after that I can try and turn on the enemy's flank. Skirmishers here doing a good job of tying this down. Polish Legion reforming. But over here, old guard trading really well. Fusiliers are almost dead. My own Walloons, though, still holding strong. My general in the back, hiding behind this house, but still giving encouragement to my enemy. To my allies. And I decide, fuck it. Let's go ahead and get into melee. Knock this unit out. The old guard, I can deal with them with my my units here. And on this front, actually, somehow the enemy units, I think it's because I was exhausted. No, I was tired. Anyway, they see me off with the help of the Polish Legion. So slowly but surely, I'm losing more and more men. So this flank may get turned. But over here, with the charge of the Walloon Guards, it's sending the old guard packing. We are hot on their heels. A little bit faster than them. We may even catch up, but I'm in an awkward situation where now the young guard are chasing after me as well. So this is a hell of a sandwich going on here. Anyways, the enemy is forced to retreat. He's going to try and recoup around this flank, but he's really scared of my pursuing Walloon Guards. My own general coming about, seeing this, and the rest of my units are coming up close, but they're very exhausted, so we may have to fight this one out. Not quite sure how far the enemy is going to push, but it looks like this has been enough for the voltigeurs. They're going to call it quits. Not sure where this Polish Legion is going, but all of a sudden here, my Walloon Guards are caught between two enemy infantry. I hold firm because I wanted to fix these young guard in place while I fire into the rear. That's going to give an opportunity for the old guard to charge in, so my guys definitely have to hold. Polish Legion going to be taking a beating from my Fusiliers, also firing in. Somehow their morale is still green. My general is going to be pulled in here. Looks like this unit in the back still alive. My general is going to come in to try and up the morale of the Walloon Guards, try and keep them in here. But I am a little bit scared. You can see my enemy repositioning. These guys, seeing my general out in the open, are going to want to snipe him before he gets the opportunity. I'm going to pull out of there. He was hoping to get a nice little morale blow against my guys, but luckily I'm going to boogie on out of there. Polish Legion positioning themselves to secure the flank here, but 2 light infantry are finally going to pull up into position. But these Young Guard are stubborn as hell, not wanting to retreat. Same thing with the Walloon, going to be holding strong. And here comes my general. I say, fuck it, let's pull him into the center. I think we're in a pretty good position. Got my guy suppressing this force. I'm going to rally this guy, do a general rally as well. And that should be enough to see the Young Guard finally off. Old Guard going to be holding strong, but against Walloons, the trade will be relatively even. And their morale is not holding in there. General is still here. Pulled him out a little bit because the enemy was going to try and snipe him. So I get some firing off. I'm going to reposition him a little bit. And this is the final days of the French army. The Spanish are going to be victorious here. So there you go. With the Old Guard down, the enemy is going to call it quits here soon. So a very triumphal attack. A very long fight. But these are the fights in Napoleon that I really like. Wasn't super cheesy or anything. Pretty strategic. And I like the fact that there was limits on light infantry and artillery. And that this was a nice little a chess of a fight. I would say very strategic, moving pieces around one at a time, seeking advantages and seeking to turn those advantages into even more advantages, which is how Total War battles should be. I mean, this one played out pretty long, so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Definitely a change of pace to Warhammer, where I really, it's hard for me to get into those battles. They are over super quick. I don't quite see the depth to it, and they're just not that fun to play unless you're there for the cinematics. Strategically, it's just not for me. Anyways, in terms of the kills here, Walloon Guards with 142 and 100, Caçadores with 68 and some with 71 here. So definitely these guys earning their chevrons. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this fight. 12-pounder here was a pretty big waste. Wished I'd brought a howitzer. It's better at dealing with the infantry blobs that we were seeing there. Although I did kind of think it'd be able to counter the enemy artillery, and I guess in that role it at least suppressed it a little bit and drew some fire. But damn, pretty disappointed with it. Anyways, that's it for this fight. Pretty close. Enemy killed, almost dead even here. I brought way more men, so his guys trading more cost effectively. But still, very fun fight. So kudos to my opponent. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for the recommendation to play Napoleon as well. I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys appreciate this this video as well. And like I said, stay tuned for that Moments episode as we churn out more of those documentaries. A lot of them are in progress behind the scenes, so stay tuned. And be sure to check out the Patreon page as well, so you can hopefully help throw some funds behind the documentaries to help us turn these around quicker. All the money goes towards funding artists and researchers. So that's it. See you in the next one. Peace out.